Welcome, friends. Let us together rebuild this world so that we may live, laugh, and lore.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Not listening. I'm not listening.
Oh, that took.
Program loaded and ready.
Make it so.
Welcome to the
Live, Laugh, Lore podcast.
We're your host. I'm Tony.
And I'm Mark, and we have two guests this time, Tony, don't we?
Two guests, yeah. We have Joe and Paul with us. So, Joe, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Joe, friend of Tony's. Happy to be here, mostly as a late addition. Paul had to advocate for me just to give Tony and Mark a little bit of flavor on how much of the One Piece world I'm in. So I told Tony and Mark before we started that I took a Harry Potter quiz on the way up here from work.
Was it official? Pottermore?
www.probablynotpottermore. It was about 5 minutes to get all the way through it, so definitely not.
Okay, yeah.
But on this side of the table, Paul and I are both Team Gryffindor.
But there's an asterisk there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but
Okay.
yeah.
What we'll
It's
get
not
there.
official, Paul.
Yeah, we'll work through it, but it's actually really funny. They are at a legitimate side of the table, just behind the screen. Yeah, it was just Mark and I on the right, and then, Paul and Joe on the left. So, Paul,
Yes. So,
introduce yourself.
Yes, I am Paul, as has been mentioned in a previous episode. I'm Tony's cousin, Mark's brother.
A couple episodes, I think.
I think, yeah, at this
Well, not the
point.
previous, but a previous.
Yep.
But proud Gryffindor. Just great to be here, really.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to talk about the world of One Piece. Another reason why I brought Joe here, because I know he has a lot of good knowledge we can put to use. But it's feels almost surreal, really, to have both my cousin and my brother finally trapped in a room where I can just talk about One Piece for like 2 hours.
Okay,
They
so
can't get away.
Let's clarify this, because he says finally trapped to tell us, whenever I drive Paul home, I feel like, so I've watched a little bit of One Piece, but I stopped a long time ago. But Paul needs to tell me all the latest One Piece updates. So, although I haven't seen an episode in several years, I feel like I know what's going on because Paul just tells me.
Yeah.
I try to
Zone me out? Yes, you do try to zone me out. If that's
But I
what
still
you're
hear
gonna
it,
say.
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, no, and I think the other big thing is that it's kind of funny. We all grew up together. Sorry, Joe, but yeah, I mean, but
He's a
us three.
Joe was there in
he's-
spirit.
Joe was there in spirit. But we all grew up with each other, and we all kind of had our bread and butter shows. And Paul's for the longest time was One Piece, and it's funny because we were all on the Naruto train. We can get across like the 700 plus episodes. We're like, oh, that's not a big deal. Then Paul would just sell One Piece, and it was like, oh, well, surely it can't be that many episodes. Then all of a sudden, we saw the episode count. I think it
got so bad. I mean, Paul was first trying to catch up, right? But now he's right on schedule. He's past the shows, but with the manga. But one summer, I remember in particular, our mother got very concerned because all Paul did would get up, go do his summer job, and then he'd come home, watch One Piece probably till 2 a.m, and repeat.
sounds like the life.
I just want to say, not only was it totally worth it, but I was 100% dedicated to that experience. I believe at the time there was around 600 episodes out in One Piece, years ago at this rate, and I finished it all in like 3 months with my mom putting every obstacle she could in my way to slow me down.
So it's dedication.
That is
dedication and grind.
true dedication.
So, let's put some coal in this train, right? Let's see this baby burn.
100%?
So once again, just like the Jenna episode, Game of Thrones, we haven't prepped anything. We're just coming in. We've prepped one thing, but we'll talk about that at the end. We kind of all picked our special fruits, did some research on that. But right now, we're going to just hand it over to the boys and let them rock and roll.
real quick before that, I just want to say, as far as my knowledge goes, besides Paul's encyclopedic regurgitating to me, I watched up until right before the Ennis Lobby arc, and which Paul says that's when it starts to get good, and he's always been mad that I never breached that arc.
Oh, wow.
Have you watched any, Tony? Just to get our listeners.
So mine was more or less whenever an Instagram reel came by, I would always send it to Paul just as a, whatever. But I have formulated my own opinions of the show as I've gone with minimal watch. I don't think I've fully put on a One Piece episode. But I will say, Brooke's my favorite character. Dude, Bink Sake is the song that they play.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff rocks.
And we can talk about that as we progress further, 100%.
And I think that's what took the winds out of my sail, because finally I was sending Paul so many Instagram reels of this that I was getting inspired to actually watch it, because I'm like, okay, now I'm actually kind of curious about these characters. And the worst part was I was like, oh yeah, Brooke, he's like my dude. I think he's like my favorite character. And Paul's like, I don't think he comes in until like 100 episodes or something crazy, maybe even more.
Way more.
Way more?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with Brooke because, and Ennis Lobby's probably a couple hundred episodes
and
in.
its lobbies is like maybe 450.
No,
So I watched, no,
Yeah,
you,
it's
it's
pretty-
less.
Dressrosa was around
700, I think.
700.
Yeah, but then they had the whole Marineford arc.
We can just pop right
we
in.
might
Yeah,
be closer there.
Yeah. But that is really funny. So I was even underpinning it
Yeah.
with 100. So
Yeah.
no, this is perfect. So yeah, take it away, boys.
Yeah, let's hand it over.
Yep.
Of course. Yeah, so before we start really diving deep, I feel like Joe and I, our initial plan was kind of talk about the world building of One Piece, kind of the background of everything, the way just the world is like shaped from like land masses and powers, including the government and other, I guess, naval presences, because the world's mostly water-based. But move on and talk about, who Luffy is, the main character of the story, and how he gets inspired to go on his great journey of being a pirate. So with that in mind, I'll just start kind of explaining the world of One Piece.
Yep.
So One Piece, the world really doesn't have an official name to it, but One Piece is mainly a water-based world. Instead of large continents or anything like that, it's just a bunch of islands scattered throughout the world. They split it up into 4 seas: East, West, North, and South Blue.
Nice.
That's what they call it. Super creative.
I was
but-
expecting something. When you went on that list, I was like, he didn't start with North, so surely it can't be the 4 cardinal directions.
I started
And-
with East because Luffy starts in the East Blue.
Oh.
True fan right there.
Yeah,
True
yeah,
fan,
yeah.
You have to start with the
Wait,
East.
it's cardinal direction blue? That's the
Yes,
name?
correct.
So North blue, East blue?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it gets further divided because, as I said before, though, there's no large continent landmass. There's a caveat to that, because technically there is one. There was one large, giant strip of land called the Red Line that is basically on the hemisphere. It spans the entire circumference of
Oh, like the
Earth.
equator.
Yeah,
almost.
so it's essentially the boundary between the northeast, south, and west blues is this giant, just hundreds foot tall sheet of red rock that just completely bisects into 4 areas.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it goes, it's across
The world.
No, it bisects technically 2 areas. The reason why the seas are split into 4 locations, because there is this strip of water that is very special in a way. We can go into that later as we progress. But there's the strip of water where most of the story takes place on, called the Grand Line. And that's where most of the pirates are located and most of the action and plot in the story.
So it's the red line and the grand line.
And the Grand Line. Yes.
Man, they are.
Do you know which
killing
one
it on
goes
the
north,
names.
south, and which one goes east?
The red
west?
line goes north and south. Grand line goes east and west. So that's basically how the world is situated with land masses and important
And
landmarks.
there's no like inlets or canals that bridge between like the north and south.
There is only one, if that's what you're saying.
Between the Redstone. I'm saying like,
Like,
is
how
there
do you
any?
get- yeah.
How do you cross?
Exactly. So
Or you just hope that, man, just by random chance, I'm on the side that has like no solid pirates
Nope.
and I'm just killing it. Yeah.
so there is one inlet that exists. I'm almost forgetting what it's called. It's the backwards river or the reverse mountain.
Reverse mountain.
That's what it is. I was very close to the backwards
Yeah,
river.
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's the reverse.
You had it, yeah.
Yeah, it's the reverse mountain.
Okay.
The mountain, it's very interesting because there's a lot of magical stuff in One Piece. But basically, when you reach it, either one of the seas, there is just a sharp 45-degree, maybe more incline of the water rushing upwards. And all you have to do is just get your ship aligned and go up that river, and then you reach the peak of the mountain, and then there's a 5th channel going into the Grand Line.
Gotcha.
Essentially shoots you straight down. So any of the 4 seas can connect to the Grand Line, because that's the only way to get on the Grand Line
Oh.
is to go up this reverse mountain and come down to it essentially from the beginning.
Yeah.
Now you may be wondering, why can't you get on the Grand Line from any of the seas if it's just, this Grand Line that's bisecting the seas from east to west? The answer to that is, on both sides of the Grand Line, there is this large stretch of water called the Calm Belt, essentially protecting the Grand Line. There is no wind, there's no nothing there. So for the ships they use, at least, in the very beginning of the story, they're all wind-based. So they can't even sail their ships. They try to row through them. There's a bunch of dangerous sea creatures there guarding the calm belt, and it's a death sentence for anyone who wants to cross.
Bermuda Triangle, but
Yeah.
boundary. Yeah. Wow. Okay, yeah, and then, sorry, I'm just asking questions because I'm generally curious. Like,
Yeah.
because there's no continents, like shipyards, shipwrecks, like, how do they build their ships? Like, can you build a ship technically on the Grand Line and you're good to go? Like, is there any islands in the Grand Line?
Correct.
Oh, yes.
Correct.
Oh, there is.
It's not. That's the whole point. Is when you're going through the Grand Line, your journey is not from start to finish. You're on to the next island, and it's not one after another. There's several branching paths that you can go off of.
Oh, I was imagining it was like a no joke. Like,
No.
you're on an escalator, you're going wherever it's going to take you. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, cool.
So are there any, because you said most of the pirates, they hang out on the Grand Line. Are there islands on any of the blues? So there are people that live out of the Grand Line.
Correct.
And they're other professions? They're not pirates? Are they like normal civilians or what?
I feel like we'll definitely going to touch on that soon, but to answer that right now, yes, they're just civilians normally.
Okay.
Each blue is known for different things, very generally, and the East Blue, where Luffy's from, is known as the weakest. Just the weakest people in general there.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that, now that we know how the world landscape is sort of laid out, it's very naval based. It's island to island. There's just the one continent that kind of bisects stuff. So with that, let's get into kind of explaining also Mark's question about, are there people, like, are there any other islands other than just what's on the Grand Line where the pirates are? So we have a world government. So this government is essentially ruling over all of the nation islands. And there's 140 or so across the 4 blues that are all member nations, kind of like a UN. Think of it sort of like that. And the world government actually has power as compared to the UN. But with that, so we have the world government, and technically there is a congregation of each of the island's rulers. There's a ruling family, and each of those rulers come to a big summit meeting every 5 years, 7 years, something along those lines. And it's called the Reverie, and that's where they kind of, hey, how are things going for you guys? We got problems with pirates. Oh, let's, crack down on pirates, sort of thing. They come up with a bunch of different solutions, new trade arrangements, things like that. They kind of just keep the flow of things going. And from that, the world government gets the orders on how they need to run things or change things up, and they kind of dish it out from there. And with that, there's only one caveat in that. So you would think the way that that's introduced, that the Reverie, the congregation of rulers, they're in charge. Well, there's this separate group that's also recognized called the 5 Elders. Mm-hmm. And they don't really have any power in the eyes of the Reverie individuals, the ruling families that go there. They just kind of think they're on the sidelines helping. But in actuality, they're actually trying to pull a lot of the strings with the military, and not just to carry out the orders that the Reverie gave them, but also to some covert operations and things like that. The dirty work that maybe the Reverie didn't think of that needs help cleaned up.
And is there some capital land where this group operates out of, or are they separated out? Like the specifically the group that doesn't really hold power but does the dirty work?
Yeah, so they actually, and again, there's no large land masses. It's just islands. Marine Ford is essentially the headquarter base of the Marines, and the 5 Elders typically, whenever they're seen, look like they're in the penthouse of Marine Ford.
Okay, Marine Ford, like
Yeah.
Ford. Okay, gotcha.
There's also one other location. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I call it Mary Jo's.
Marie Joy, that's about as close as I'll ever get.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
that location too is also where we see the 5 Elders, especially later into the series.
Okay.
Mainly because our Lord and Savior Oda, started fleshing that out a little bit more. Fun fact: Oda is the writer and author of the One Piece series. Anyways, Mary Jo's is located on the top of the Red Line.
Oh, like on it.
Yes.
It's pretty much uninhabitable, the entirety of the top of the Red Line, except this one island.
Gotcha.
Marie Joy.
Yeah, and it's the headquarters of the world government. Marineford is the headquarters of the military.
So two different HQs. So sorry, I should have mentioned this too, really quick. Don't want to cause any arguments or anything. Are you guys dubbed or sub people?
Subbed.
Easily sucked. Thank
Okay,
you,
so you're
Joe.
both subs. Because we ran into that during the Naruto episode where I was saying names and Mark kind of looked at me and he was saying names. We like, granted, it was like none of the main characters, but little things like that.
So Tony is wrong. Tony is
I'm a dub
dub
man.
guy. So we got three versus one on this
Hey, but
issue.
I'm a loud and proud one. You know what I mean? That's I'm a big dub guy. I don't know what it is. If I'm gonna read, I'll read a book. You know what I mean? Come on. I don't know.
I will say I was a dub guy until I ran out of dub episodes and started doing sub. Your life's changed because
Really
like the
is.
words match and it just flows so much better.
Oh wait, they
in the
don't do
sub
like a
version.
full dubbed, like where they change the lips.
No, they
Almost
just
never.
Wow,
it's
Naruto.
just a, no, not with even with Naruto. It's just a voiceover.
Oh no, Naruto actually does the no joke lips.
I don't know. I don't think
Oh, 1000%. I just
think
watched
so?
it. Yeah, 1000%.
maybe now.
That's why it's so later. Like
when,
it
when you watch it when it first came out, it definitely wasn't.
Oh,
so maybe now.
correct. When it first came out, no, but like Naruto's been out for so long that
That they-
they've actually
they
caught
had
up
the time and money to
animations.
do it,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they actually had like, Toonami and everything when it was on.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't the best match, but no joke now. It's matching. So sorry. That was a big deviation. But that was the reason why I asked, because you guys are asking for like the different pronunciations. Sometimes it does change, so I was just curious if, there's difference between sub and dub, but you guys are sub, so we don't know.
Yeah.
At least from this now. Yeah.
I mean, no, absolutely. So if you go onto Hulu or Netflix, where some of them, they have like the first 150 or 200 episodes on there, and you can watch the sub and the dub. They're both listed. And probably when I was a kid, I preferred to watch the dub, and I probably got through 150 or 200, maybe all dubbed. And then when I picked the series back up as I got older and actually wanted to keep watching, all that I had was subbed.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is, I hate having to look at the bottom of the screen, not see what the action's going on, having to read. And as you go through it, it's like it almost fades away. You can very quickly tell just through tones of characters, is this something that I need to be looking down for, or should I be looking? It comes natural, and
It does.
I feel like you start to pick up some words too.
a little bit, yeah. It's actually pretty funny. You just all of a sudden can come up with a few words, and like you almost sound like you're speaking something that would make sense, and it absolutely does not. But it's just fun to say.
But it's also like they say like there's like Japanese and there's weeb Japanese.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Heavy weed.
You do it like you know what I mean? Like a lot more of those.
I can definitely
Damo.
understand it very well. Can I speak it? Not so much.
Gotcha.
But anyways, like back on track, we were talking about before.
Yeah, so we were talking about the two HQs, right? So you have military and you have the
Yes.
world leaders or world nation.
World
The
government.
World government.
And-
I was thinking United Nations joke. That's
Yeah,
still so
that
solid.
was
Sorry.
good.
Yeah. And Joe introduced that very well. But another caveat, though, really kind of talking about why there's, I guess, two separate things with the military HQ. In more correct terms, really, is the naval HQ. Again, this world is mostly marine based, so they may have, honestly, they probably don't even have any like land armies. The land armies are just naval men who
Oh,
go
just on shore
or
leave.
just go on to the islands, or invade the islands if need be, if to fight whatever.
Yeah, not a big Air Force.
No, there's no Air
world.
Force. There's just a naval presence in this world.
Okay.
And that's exactly what the military is.
Wow.
It's naval across the board. So that's pretty interesting to see as you progress with the story. But I think that's really the government side of things.
Yeah, and moving on from there, obviously we have the pirates, the adversaries of the world government. The whole reason that they even exist to protect the citizens is to protect them from pirates. Now, you would think with that, they've got to be the ultimate evil. Like that's, that encompasses every pirate. And trying to get into it, the reason that we're currently in the show, it's called the Great Pirate Era. Now, how do you kick off an era like that? The intro to the very first episode is essentially the retelling of Gold Roger, who was effectively known as the Pirate King. Now, is he wearing a crown? No. Does he have a throne to sit on? No. It is essentially a term of respect that not only other pirates gave him, but also was recognized by the military. And how does the military recognize the feats of pirates? Well, they have this thing called the bounty system. And the bounty system, the currency in the world is called berries. So 1 million berries, 10 million berries. That's how they effectively name their bounties. So the higher the bounty, the more powerful or the more dangerous that the world government perceives a particular pirate. And with that, the highest bounty ever was for the previous pirate king, Gold Roger. And the way that he earned that title was on this Grand Line that, where most of these pirates resided. There is a final island. And with that, he was the only one to ever reach it. And that's how he earned the title for Pirate King.
Does it get more like treacherous, or is it just he just put time in the market kind of deal? Or is that a really heavy question?
So,
but you can also stop me on any of these questions because
no worries.
To me it seems like a simple question,
Right.
but I also know that if someone asks me a simple question, I bite it. Air quotes. Sorry, we're an audio podcast. Air quotes, simple question, and then it turns out to be a pretty lore-heavy episode.
I feel like we can talk about it now. I mean, like Joe said, Gold Roger was recognized as the Pirate King because he reached the final island, right? And not only that, but he had great strength to back it. Hence his highest bounty ever.
Was his crew strong, I would imagine, as
His
well?
crew was also very strong. Very, very strong. But on the progression of any pirate, so when the pirates go on the Grand Line now in this current era, what they're searching is following the footsteps of the Pirate King, right? They all want to reach the final island. Because in the first episode, it's not really a spoiler, but it starts with the execution with the Pirate King, Gold Roger. And that's where the legend of the One Piece begins.
Wow.
The One Piece specifically, Gold Rogers announces to the public at his execution, everything that I ever had, all of my treasure, is buried in one place. The One Piece treasure. He dubs the name of the treasure the One Piece treasure at the end of the Grand Line. So that sets everyone off in terms of treasure seeking and things like that to go into the Grand Line, become pirates, and get to the end. Now, not everyone has the same goal. It's not like a rat race. Everyone's trying to get there. There are many people that are, many people that have failed and given up sort of thing. But you run into a lot of people who, hey, they find an island, they carve out a bit of power, and they make it their territory, and they rule. Not everyone wants to go after the One Piece. Some, call it a myth, don't think it's real. Others, that's just not what they're looking for. So it really just depends.
So this may reveal too much of the show, or maybe you'll address it later. Either way, what stopped, say, Gold Roger's first mate or someone else on his crew from obtaining the One Piece if they were there with him?
So that's more of a end game type of answer for that question, but just generally, they had everything already. They were following Roger. They were very loyal to him, and through one reasons or another, the Roger Pirates were disbanded about 2 years before Roger was executed.
Ooh, it seems a little Ambu Black Ops, Naruto
It was 2 years or 1 year.
conspiracy. All right.
But they found no need to continue, or at least most of them that are named, because we don't have all the names of his crew members, didn't see fit to continue with their piracy. Either they just branched off with their own crews, or they retired.
Oh, I thought you mean like they just like randomly disbanded. No, they like hit their end and they said, I'll retire.
They
Or
just straight up disbanded. Some of them
At the order of Gold Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
It was his decision. He's the captain, and that doesn't mean everything goes. Everyone respects him. And this loyalty is pretty much everything in this show. You don't get a ton of what normal pirate activities like you'd think, mutinies, things like that. There's obviously betrayal here and there, but in all actuality, the feats of the captain and the crew are shared. Now, all the glory and envy, a lot of it will go towards the captain, whoever it is for that particular pirate crew. But he's proud to be the first mate of whoever the captain is, the navigator, all these different roles that you could be. They're not trying to take over the captain's role, per se.
Gotcha. Yeah, there is a reason why I thought it was kind of odd that there's some plot afoot where it's
Right.
like, wait, he asked them to disband? Why is that? Or
So does Luffy seek out, or does he just run into any of...
So we'll put a pin in that for now.
Okay.
Okay, so
That-
we're close,
That's
Mark.
a great question.
We're-
We'll put a pin in that.
Yeah.
We're so close.
We're asking good questions.
All
Continue
right,
with what you
let me.
got. Yeah.
Mark and I are taking off our tinfoil hats
Nope,
right now.
that's okay.
We're taking away the red yarn. We're gonna. Yeah.
Let's backtrack a little bit to a previous question that wasn't fully fleshed out. How dangerous are these islands as you progress, right? So when you first start out in any of the blues, east, north, south, whatever, it's basically the normal world that we live in, right?
Okay.
Nothing crazy. The Grand Line is home to not only a lot of monstrous sea creatures, they called sea kings, which is just essentially gigantic, any sort of creature that lives in the sea, but also catastrophic and sudden weather phenomenon.
Oh, okay.
So it can be extremely dangerous traveling the seas, especially if you don't have a navigator, a competent navigator. And another point, since the weather phenomenon is so strange and sudden, it really messes with navigation just as we know it today, like any mundane navigation. So
there's like computing systems where they do like sextants or.
So instead, they have something called a log pose. What that is a strange compass that can pick up the high magnetic frequencies of the islands that are located in the Grand Line. Because each island in the Grand Line has a large amount of like magnetic identities.
Each island's frequency is unique, so the log pose is set to a specific island. Now, when you're leaving the previous island and that's your destination, you look at it kind of like a watch, and it's got a big bulb on it. It doesn't matter what the sea looks like in front of you for the most part. You follow that compass, and that's really the way that you get there a lot of the time.
Correct.
Cool.
And that's the really big navigation thing behind that. But besides the whole navigation of all the sea itself, then we start getting into the fact that, other pirates roam these seas. And these countries the island countries and nations that live in the Grand Line are way more powerful and resilient than any other island nations in the other seas because the fact they live on the Grand Line. They have to deal with all these kind of phenomena in their entire lives. So that kind of answers your question, are these islands dangerous and everything? Because as they further progress, they further run into those dangers.
I see.
And not only that, but they further run into the presence of the military. They kind of progress with the story because when you first start on the Grand Line, you're going to find the weakest people on the Grand Line. That's just how it operates. The further you go, the stronger you go. And that's because the further you go, the closer you are to the final island.
Yeah.
To the One Piece.
Allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yeah, no. I appreciate the answer to that question. I had a feeling when I asked that question it was going to be not so simple answer. But no, I totally appreciate it. I never knew.
So one of the last points that I will bring up. So yes, we have this, pirate, military, naval battles. It's all very much, think like 1600s, 1700s. The soldiers have like musket type weaponry. Nothing's too fancy. And the pirates, a lot of it is swords and just physical combat. So you think a show that's 1,100 plus episodes and counting now, how do you keep that fresh? Yep. Well, Oda will tell you. And that's called devil fruits. So these are incredibly wacky. They can be incredibly serious. These are special fruit that extremely rare that spawn throughout the One Piece world, and with them, completely random. Now, each fruit itself is not random. If you were like a bird watcher and you could look at and recognize something or tell what it was, you would know what it was. But to the average person that doesn't know, if you were to eat one of these fruit that look very distinctive, so you couldn't just happen to think you're eating a normal apple.
So you're not at the local market and someone's like, oh my God,
yeah,
Jim, what's going on?
Yeah, if you saw one, you'd be like, okay, that looks like it might be spoiled.
Okay.
So you would probably avoid it anyways. But when you eat one of these, you can gain a very special, very unspecial, who knows, it's a complete grab bag power. And the one drawback, regardless of what the power is you lose the ability to swim. So
seems a little important in a nautical world.
You might say so.
Especially for pirates.
Especially, why would that be your modality?
So,
why would you not go, you know what? We have ships. where's the Wright brothers when you need them?
Yeah.
Because then you know.
Davy Jones is collecting a lot. For his
Yeah,
record.
oh my
Is there a
gosh.
Davy Jones in the One Piece world?
Is there a conceptual?
No,
Or
and
a
yes.
version?
So there is no official Davy Jones, but there is a nice little tease of a Davy Jones later on in the story,
Okay.
where the legend did definitely arise from.
Okay, but yeah, sorry. So but it does seem important to swim.
Yeah. Well, and the little funny thing about they don't forget how to swim, right? That's not what it is. Instead, they lose their ability to swim is a nice vague term saying they just gain great weakness from being in water. And they just cannot swim because they cannot move. They just feel so weak, they lose all their strength, and then they can just sink
Okay,
like a hammer.
not to be dumb or too logical about this, but like if they perspire, that's technically water, but it's not like
Specifically, like,
ocean water.
yeah, you're not going to the water park and feeling, numb.
Yeah.
it's-
or they're in the
it's-
shower using their Dove for Men soap, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, geez, I'm gonna
yeah.
pass out. Yeah, okay. So
Yes.
it is the ocean specifically.
It is the ocean
Okay, I thought it was
specifically,
just
and
all
it's
water.
Think of it as like a big strength sapper. Like no matter how big or strong you are, like you lose the ability to fight and keep yourself up, and you would eventually drown if uninterrupted.
Should we talk about our boy Luffy, the main character, first before we jump in the whole devil fruit business?
I think that'll be a good introduction
Okay.
into the devil fruits. Go ahead.
I'm thinking so as well. So, as I just said, we basically just went over a large overarching view of the world of One Piece, which is perfect setting up our main character, Monkey D. Luffy. Now, in any Japanese anime or manga, they switch the first and last names, right? So, for the English standards, his first name is Luffy, right? So it would be Luffy D. Monkey.
Oh,
Right.
they switch it. I see.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So his last name is Monkey, first name is Luffy, middle name is D. The story starts off again with Gold Roger and all his business, everything he says at his execution, the One Piece is real. And then it moves on to seeing a 17-year-old boy on a very rinky-dink, basically rural town situated on this island in the East Blue.
Fishing village.
Fishing village, thank you.
Poor, humble fishing village.
Yep. And he starts off on his journey of becoming a pirate. Now, as Joe mentioned before, in our world, I guess pirates are considered evil, but in the world of One Piece, especially in Luffy's mindset, they are not. So
I'm imagining it's like a Captain Jack Sparrow. Like there's
In
like
a
a
way.
morally good version
So-
of a pirate.
Right. I'm sure there's plenty of crews that are definitely evil, but then there's crews that they're just pirates, right?
So for Luffy,
They're labeled pirates,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Luffy in his childhood years, he grew up with an understanding that like pirates not only are good, honest, and like loyal, right? They have honor, but their whole thing is it's freedom. That's what a pirate is. It's someone who is free, not someone who pillages and plunders. So all Luffy wants to be, he just wants to be free and travel the world, have adventures, find friends, and build a crew, right? So that's what his whole mindset is when he sets off on his first adventure. And we see him go on and progress. But what Joe said, introducing Luffy is a great idea for devil fruits, because Luffy happens to have a devil fruit. He actually ate one when he was, I don't know, maybe 5 years old on accident. And this was the time he was actually starting to think about becoming a pirate and trying to train and become stronger, to be one. And he lost his ability to swim, which really derailed him and made him pretty sad. But he gained a pretty cool ability out of it. It's called the Gum Gum Fruit. Essentially, his body now is made out of rubber. So any physical attacks don't really hurt him that much because they bounce off. And he can stretch, kind of like Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Wait, so sorry, just go back and once again, simple question, probably long answer. They don't regulate these fruits. Like, was it like just like on a tree, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna eat this fruit," or
Yeah, do they
like,
grow? Do they grow at random?
or is it like Aragon, where like the egg has to hatch for this person, so they're like buy this fruit, and all of a sudden the fruit like magically changes, and they think,
So there's officially fruits generally just appear in the sea, right? And they're found randomly. But we
in the sea, like it's like Minecraft, you just throw a fishing fishing line out there,
very-
and you're hoping for a trident.
Devil fruit
like-
are extremely rare. So let's
Okay.
put it that way.
Oh, okay.
But that's officially. But realistically, there is a definite science behind the appearance of devil fruits. But that gets
We're
pretty,
endgame.
That's endgame stuff.
Okay, sorry.
100%.
So
So
I
we
had a
don't
feeling
really
we were
talk about
endgame
that.
when I asked that, but I just didn't know.
Regardless, you can kind of think of it as they appear at random. They can, a normal fruit can turn into a devil fruit. There's nothing you do. There's nothing you do to cause it. It's just, think of there's 100 million fruit in the world, and at any given time, one could turn. There's nothing you can do. There's no way to track it. So that's why they're very rare. You just never know when you're going to come across one. And it's not only pirates who are looking out for these fruit. The Navy is as well. They're also hiring people to go out and try and collect certain fruit.
Will they eat the fruit, the Navy, or will they just take it and store it for whatever? You know what I mean? Like, do they believe, or is it more the pirates who have these abilities, or does the Navy also have the abilities to combat the pirates?
Yeah, yes or no. Depends what the fruit is. Either they save it and don't eat the fruit and do other things with it, or they in fact do eat the fruits because then they don't persecute people for having devil fruits. Anyone can have a devil fruit.
Oh, it's not specific. Okay, so it's not just pirates.
Yes.
Okay.
But
We need to combat people. I thought it was mostly pirate. Well, because this is mostly a pirate show. You know what I mean? You see it more, but
Well, the naval presence is pretty heavy.
Gotcha.
Maybe not in the first part of the show, but later on. Just because the Navy is battling all the pirates, especially the strong ones. But back to your first question before about how does Luffy kind of get this fruit? He's just finding it laying around.
yeah, you just bring a banana home for the market, and all of a
Kinda
sudden it's
funny.
like, ugh.
Technically, he does find it laying around, but not on a tree. As I mentioned before, Luffy's in his childhood, he came up with the idea of pirates being honorable and just seeking freedom. And that came from a large, almost father figure to him, a man called Shanks. He's huge in the story. He almost never shows up, but he's still huge in the story. He does exist, and he's showing up nowadays, but that's besides the point. Shanks, him and his crew, for one reason or another, visited Luffy's village when he was young as sort of a stopping point, almost kind of like a vacation so they can rest and recuperate and resupply before they continue back on their journey in the Grand Line. Luffy, at the time, was living maybe with the bartender or a bunch of mountain bandits, but because Luffy, he doesn't know his mother or father, and his grandfather is actually, fun fact, what's his rank?
He's
Vice Admiral.
He's technically a vice admiral, but if you were to put it in terms of like ranking, what his ranking should be in the Navy by his actual strength, the tiers are: you have the fleet admiral, who is the head admiral over the entire Navy. Then you have the admirals, there are 3 of those.
Only 3 at all times.
So right there, you got the 4 top dogs. One's the King Cheese. And then below those, you have vice admirals. And vice admirals can vary greatly in strength. You can get some guys that look like world beaters, and then some are like, are you serious?
Oh, wow. And there's no limit or cap to those? They can just be as many vice admirals?
Pretty much. They're not going to promote, a ton of people to it and dilute it, but it already is kind of diluted. It's not like there's 1 or 2 per admiral. There's a handful. So his rank is fleet admiral, but in terms of strength...
Sorry, vice admiral.
Oh, thank you. In terms of strength and accomplishment, he could have been like close to fleet admiral. Like he really was.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Cream of the crop.
And
He's a world beater. Yeah.
the reason why he's not is a whole nother story we won't get into, but very interesting. And if you want to find out, watch One Piece.
Yeah, because I was going to ask. That was one thing I remembered is Luffy's grandfather was part of the Navy, and yet he thinks pirates are so great, but his grandfather does not think pirates are great.
Whoa, a
his
little
grandfather-
rebellious. Like, he's going to Spencer's Gifts when he's like, hey, can I go to the mall? You know what I mean?
His grandfather always hated Luffy when he talked about when to become a pirate. He wants him to be a Marine. But since Garp is so busy with...
Who's Garp? Sorry.
His grandfather, sorry.
Oh, his grandfather's name's
Garp.
Garp.
Monkey D. Garp.
Correct.
Okay, I love it. Yeah.
He's so busy with his work in the military, he can't always take care of him. So he leaves him on this island with people he can trust to take care of Luffy. And that gives way to Luffy one day being down in what's called Windmill Village, in their little like bar eatery area, and he meets Shanks, this handsome, charismatic pirate who starts talking about his adventures, and Luffy gets hooked. He gets the understanding of being a pirate's all about freedom, having like fun adventures, all that kind of stuff. And he starts saying, I want to be a pirate. And he does all these things trying to convince Shanks that he's not a little kid and he can handle it, so he can join him on his crew. But Shanks always says, you're just a kid, you're a crybaby, you won't be able to do it. And Luffy goes through this whole entire thing trying to prove he's not. Even at some point, he has an iconic scar under his, I believe it's his left eye.
Left eye, correct.
That's pretty iconic for the series. And we learn that Luffy got it by stabbing himself in the face with a knife in order to prove to Shanks that he's a man because he won't cry.
Yo, that's hard.
Now, stabbing
That is hardcore.
may be too severe. He carved it.
Okay. All right. That's. Yeah.
I would like to point out in the anime he carved it, but in the manga he definitely stabbed.
Oh, there's a difference here.
There's small inconsistencies, but generally everything's on the same track.
That's probably fair. If you're going on television, you probably don't want stabbing right underneath the eye for kids to see. You know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
either way, at one point in time, I believe Shanks came and went from Windmill Village multiple times. On one of his return trips back, they're sitting in a bar talking about their adventures. And Luffy gets frustrated again because Shanks won't let him join. And they have this treasure chest they planted on, a really small treasure chest they put on the bar. And Luffy's sitting there drinking milk that Shanks ordered for him just to prove the point that he's a little kid because Luffy got so happy and he drank it. And they started making fun of him. So Luffy opened the chest and he saw a fruit in there. No one was paying attention. He ate the fruit. And when Shanks realized what he'd done, he picks him up by both feet and starts shaking him upside down. It's like, spit it out, spit it out, spit it out. Only for Luffy's feet to stretch. And that's how he first got his devil fruit. Because Luffy ate a devil fruit that Shanks acquired on the sea.
So Shanks doesn't even have a devil fruit.
It was supposed to be Shanks.
Shanks and his crew are one of the very few people on the Grand Sea, at least a crew comprised of no devil fruit eaters. They don't believe in it, it seems.
Oh,
from
is
multiple
that
reasons.
like not like a religion, but is that like a belief system people have? They're like, hey, I don't want a crew with devil fruit.
No, not for the most part.
But he's unique.
It's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
he's kind of unique in that, and it's not like he recruits based on it. It's just most of them have this same belief that I don't need one.
Gotcha.
So it's not like they view it as a gimmick or anything like that, or they just don't want to chance it and maybe get a bad one sort of thing.
Gotcha.
No, they just aren't concerned with it.
Yeah.
So is Shanks' crew but one of the ones that are not actively seeking the One Piece? Or are they?
No. So in the One Piece world, we mentioned the powers, or Joe mentioned the powers and the ranking system of the military. There's a similar one with pirates, only for their notoriety. There are, I guess it would say we split up into almost 3 groups. Normal pirates in general, who just travel the Grand Line, they have bounties, whatever. And then we have the 7 warlords, who are not loved by any pirate, as they're called the dogs of the military, in a way, because they are government-sanctioned pirates. World government approves this, the kings and queens approve this, to sanction 7 very well-known and powerful pirates, sanction their piracy, but in return, they have to give part of their booty plundered from other pirates to them and be at their beck and call for certain things. And kind of a show of force to the rest of the pirates, like, hey, we can do this, and like we kind of control and own you, type of thing.
Yeah, Buggy's one of them, right?
That's another story, but yeah.
Dang. Okay.
So the reason that they have this warlord system is because of the next rank of pirate. There is a fine, delicate dance that they have to play to keep the world in balance in terms of you can't let the pirates get too strong, and the military, really, they're just trying to race to match. So it's not so much as, oh, pirates have to. No, the pirates, they really don't care. The military is just the adversary to them. It's not like an active fight against them. They just, if they could be left alone, they prefer it. And some of them
100%.
prefer it so much to be quote unquote left alone that they would be willing to become a warlord. And what that is like he said, at the beck and call, you would have to fight other pirates if they summoned you. But at the same time, if you had carved out this nice piece of territory and were exploiting the riches from this area, the military is going to turn a blind eye. They're not going to bug you. You might have to pay some sort of dues to them, but they're just going to let it ride.
Yeah, you're paying Uncle Sam, but
Yep.
other than that, you're fine. Jeez.
So that part's kind of world government is not at all ideal for multiple reasons, but that can be left for another date. But as Joe was mentioning, there's another rank that needs to be kept in check with the 7 warlords and the government. And that rank is the next one I was going to talk about, is the Emperors of the Sea. There's only 4 of them at the time of the start of One Piece, of the series. And those pirates are all operating towards the very end of the island chain and are only steps away from getting to the last island. Not only that, but each and every one of them are extremely powerful. So powerful and so that they might even surpass the admirals and even the fleet admiral themselves. They're extremely powerful. They own a lot of land. They own a lot of, territory, sorry. They own a lot of followers and crew mates, and their influence is pretty vast. And Shanks, I don't think he was at the time he was with Luffy on Windmill Island, but Shanks turns out to be one of those warlords. Or not
Whoa.
warlords, sorry, one of the emperors.
Wow.
So who are the other 3?
When Luffy starts his crew.
Is Whitebeard an emperor?
So at the time of One Piece starts, there are 4 emperors. It is Shanks, it is Whitebeard, it is Big Mom, and then Kaido. If I had to rank them, Whitebeard in his prime would be the strongest, but sadly Whitebeard is very old now. Whitebeard, when he was in his prime, was basically the rival of Gold Roger. If you had to put it in the terms of who's the strongest, Whitebeard would be the second strongest, right after Gold Roger.
Wait, was Gold Roger ever? Did they label him as an emperor? Or no? Okay.
He was just a king.
He was king.
He was king. And
okay. So this ranking happened after he disbanded.
I'm fairly certain the ranking happened after Gold Roger disbanded everything.
Gotcha. But this actually answers a lot of questions when I was doing my research for my Devil Fruit.
Does it?
Yeah, a lot.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I didn't know there's different levels, and then you
So
listed...
I might have a hint right here what you're thinking.
Okay, so you listed a couple people, and I was like, oh my god, they came up in my research. Okay.
But Whitebeard at the time, he would probably be ranked the weakest, just because he's an old man. He's way past his prime.
Currently?
He could, trust me, he can throw out some punches. Like, he could freaking throw you around town if he wanted to, but he would be the weakest. The strongest would either be Kaido or Shanks. We've never seen Shank fight before. We've seen him. We've never seen him truly fight. We've seen all the other ones fight so far. But I would say Shanks and Kaido, then Big Mom, then Whitebeard.
Wow, okay.
Joe, would you agree with that ranking?
I would, yeah. And the fact that we've never really seen Shanks, what does 100% of his power level look like? We just don't know. And that's what's so crazy about it is that, you can get current to the show, episode 1100, and it's still, you're always wanting more in terms of, and it's not just with Shanks, but there's a number of characters that are really relevant to the story and the progression of it. Like Paul mentioned, the influence. A lot of them really can pull strings without ever having to be anywhere near the action. And Shanks is definitely one of those characters. And it's always it's a cool moment when he does come on in certain spots. You might not have seen him for 200 episodes. It's wild.
Oh, wow. But then he comes in. It's even more impressive, too, because he doesn't have a devil fruit.
So that's another thing I was about to talk about. So I'm going to say one last thing, and then we can go right to devil fruits. But some people might ask, why is Shanks, we haven't seen him fight that much, but he's still a prevalent character to the story, right? And he comes in every 200 episodes or so, if that. Shanks is definitely an endgame character, and when I say endgame, I mean endgame, because this kicks off a lot of Luffy's motivation and drive. Luffy wants to be a pirate, yes. He wants to join Shanks' crew so he can be a pirate now, but Shanks won't let him. On Shanks' final departure from his village, Shanks essentially tells Luffy, you can't come. But in this entire time we've seen Shanks, he has what he calls his favorite straw hat. He takes it off his head and he puts it on Luffy's and says, when you become a great pirate, come find me one day and give it back. And he leaves.
Ooh.
So when you first start out in the show, and if you've seen any One Piece memorabilia, Luffy, his flag, his pirate flag, all have his straw hat. That's his trademark.
The Straw Hat Pirates,
He's
right?
called the Straw Hat Pirates.
The crew is even called the Straw Hats. Yeah.
Straw Hat Luffy, as he's also nicknamed.
Wow.
So that's the big thing. So Luffy's one of his big drives, really, is to find Shanks and give him back the straw hat. Will Shanks actually keep the straw hat when he gives it to him? Probably not, but we'll find that out when we get there.
So when you've seen Shanks in the future, does he just not have a hat?
Correct.
Correct. No,
Okay, I
no
was
longer
gonna
wears
say,
the hat.
I feel like that would have ruined the significance if he found a new hat, right?
Yeah,
he's waiting for his
He's
hat
like,
back.
I had to dig through the closet. That was an old one.
Yeah.
You can have that.
Or he goes back to his captain's quarter and just opens up his closet. It's just
And-
400, straw hats. He picks an extra one up. It's like,
I won't say why, and don't look it up. Watch the show, but that straw hat's special for multiple reasons.
Okay.
It's not some normal laying around straw hat that Shanks picked up and threw on his head. It's special, has meaning. Figure it out yourself, though. Watch a series. It's great.
Okay.
But
Cool.
now I feel like we can just switch right back into the Devil Fruit system and the other power system that we'll talk about in conjunction with Devil Fruits. Joe, you want to kind of kick it off, or?
Yeah, so with this, the Devil Fruits is where Oda, the author, really kind of this is where he can, get the creative juices flowing and really just let his imagination come up with almost anything. So there are 3 types of Devil Fruit that we find, and there's different subcategories within them, but there's 3 main types. And the first one, the most prominent one and most common, is the Zoan fruit. Now, this is a fruit where if you eat one, it is some sort of body transformation, and think of the animal kingdom. It's really going to encapsulate quite a bit of it. There might be, a jaguar type fruit or a lion type fruit. There's so many that are tied to animals that is primarily, even to the point where one major pirate in the story, his entire crew eats Zoan fruits. Like that is their shtick.
To be specific, it's one of the emperors of the sea, Kaido's.
Yep.
It's called the Beast Pirate, Beast Emperor, one of the two.
Well, he's called the Beast Emperor, but it's the Beast Crew.
Exactly
yeah,
right.
Yeah. When I was doing my research, I encountered that because I saw that. I was like, oh shoot, that's sick. Okay.
Sure. So you can think of really, that'd be cool to see, a lion or a whale. I don't know. You can come up with some animal that you think.
Wait, but
cool.
if they're a whale, can they even swim?
Well, there you go. But you will run into even ones that you're like, how does that work? You'll run into Alpaca Man.
It's true.
Now, granted, they come up with their own name of because they literally are morphed into an alpaca and whatever. Batman is canon in One Piece.
The Dark Knight.
It's true. A man who can turn into a bat. Hybrid version, but because with the Zoan fruits, there's multiple different forms they can take, and the path they take with the fruits can be a full transformation, it can be a partial transformation, so hybrid. But another fun part about the Zoan fruits is the fact that Joe was mentioning, I guess, kind of animals we know and see every day. There's 3 known tiers in Zoan fruit. Just normal, everyday things, like I said, lions, zebras, alpacas, elephants. Anything that exists today. Then there's ancient, which is generally just extinct animals, dinosaurs, mammoths, all that kind of stuff.
Sweet.
You see those? Then finally the mythical, which are phoenixes, dragons, which is possibly the fruit of one of the emperors, and all that kind of stuff. So Zoans they are easily, like Joe said, one of the most populated fruits out there, just because there's just so many possible types of them.
Yeah, and another thing to point out is every fruit is unique. You're never going to run into 2 people that have the same devil fruit. There's
no 2 alpaca mans?
There aren't. Hey.
There's only one at Batman, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that, it is really interesting to try and dive into, when you eat a zone, like I said, that risk, that inherent risk of, is it good or bad? A Zoan fruit probably has the lowest floor and a pretty decent ceiling. Now, granted, it's, pretty low probability you'll get this one of the ceilings, but it is one of the ones where you really could hit bottom out. Like, truly.
You get a bad one.
You could be Mole Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
The mole fruit.
Is
That
there
exists, though.
Yeah, the mole man, really?
Yeah.
But is there, do they actually do nautical creatures? Because, they can't swim or anything, right?
Correct. There's,
So, can you get, Is there a whale man?
There's no
okay.
such thing as a no. From
So,
what
so
I've
at
seen,
least
there's no such
the
thing.
fruit knows it well
Consistency,
enough.
yeah.
The fruit knows well enough because that'd be you're doubling down on a
Yeah,
double,
yeah.
right? The floor's already low.
You've got a
and then
power, but you can't use it. Joke's on you.
You are now shrimp boy. You are the crustacean everyone fears. Are shrimp crustaceans? I don't know. Sorry, but
Yeah. So one other example I'd like to give, where you pointing out that there is no whale fruit because it is redundant in that it wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
There are human fruits.
Because we are technically an animal, in a way, a mammal or whatever.
dude, can you imagine the guy who's like, I finally have a fruit. I'm so excited, and he just gets a human. Like, does anything happen? Like, is there a hybrid form?
Well, if a human ate it, who knows? But what happens if an animal eats it?
Oh, like Chopper.
My boy.
Correct, Mark. Thanks for destroying the mystique on that one.
But 100% correct.
So that was a deer who
Yeah.
ate a human fruit.
Yep.
A reindeer, but yes.
Reindeer?
Get it right, Tony.
I know, but Tony Chopper's my boy. I love him.
Is it because his first name's also Tony?
Yeah, one, and then two, I almost think it's not canon, but whenever the Tony Chopper song, Tony Chopper, I always send that to Paul, and it frustrates
It's
him.
pretty annoying.
Yeah. Like every time. I think 90% of our history of One Piece is just Tony Chopper
Accurate.
repeats. But yeah, so anyone who has a digestive system basically can eat a fruit, so there could be effects there. Okay.
And I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. There are even instances of inanimate objects, swords, that have a devil fruit ability.
So they're like Fruit Ninja, and they just cut into one, and they're like,
No.
oh, okay.
The reason why the scientific explanation behind it is unknown, but the fact that it is possible obviously is known. There is this famous scientist who we won't really touch upon too much, called Dr. Vegapunk. He is easily hundreds of years beyond his time. He is the most famous scientist who is leading every single technological breakthrough there is in this world. And he discovered the fact that, devil fruits, there's a lot of intricacies with them besides what's on the surface. And he discovered the way for them to be fused with inanimate objects.
Okay.
Hence these weapons that have devil fruits, although they are extremely rare. They don't do that a lot for multiple reasons, but
It probably matters what type of fruit, too.
Probably.
I mean, I can't imagine like a sword. It's like, I turn you into a snake. You know what I mean? Like, a Zoan fruit doesn't seem that.
Yeah, it's
Well,
just a
actually,
dead
the-
snake there.
Yeah.
not necessarily. The only thing we've ever seen exemplifies that fact is a sword that turns into an elephant.
Oh, so it is a Zoan fruit. Oh, I thought it was going
is
to be one of the
elephant
nature.
alive and it moves around?
It has a will of its own because a little known fact when you first start off, every single fruit that at least is a Zoan, it's only been confirmed for Zoans, they have a will of their own.
Okay. All right. I like that.
So
I might change
So-
my answer at the end, but I like that.
That just opened a whole
Yeah, that opens
door
a
of
lot.
questions.
which we don't have all the answers to.
Hey,
Our
but
Lord-
lay
Lord
it on
and
me. What you
Savior.
got?
So, people or animals that eat the Zoan fruit, is there a little voice in the back of their mind that is the will of the fruit?
Yeah, does that will
I
end with
wouldn't-
the eating?
I wouldn't say there's a voice in the back of their mind that they can hear. There could be let's talk about this. So we'll explain the other two types here shortly, but with every single fruit there's something called the awakening of the fruit.
Okay.
That's when both your body and your mind are finally able to fully accept the full powers of the fruit you eat. So let's say you eat the elephant fruit that sword ate. You get the base powers, but you're not fully. You've always been a human, never had a devil fruit. You're not fully ready to accept what the powers give you.
So physical is immediate, but the mind one, the awakening takes a bit.
Even the physical is that both of them take a bit.
Oh.
So the awakening is the,
Well, Luffy was immediate. I thought he just immediately ate it and he shook him.
That is the fruit showing its powers,
correct.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that
He's not awakened.
it's like, hey, what are all the different things you can do with rubber? Well, I could twist it. That'll kind of create.
Oh,
There's so many different ways to enhance just the innate power of being able
Correct.
to stretch.
Basically, you have to reach the pinnacle of what your powers can provide, right? You're like you understand fully what your power is, type of thing.
Okay.
Awakening is the peak step of that devil fruit, and it's a qualitative change where, like, let's say one of my favorite users of all time, devil fruit users that is, used this other type of fruit we'll talk about here shortly, but basically he had the string fruit. He could control strings. He's almost like a puppet master. Like, he can really be very specific with strings. Once when he awakened, previously he could kind of turn himself into strings sometimes, but he could now affect the world. Instead of just himself, he could turn other objects into strings. So, and for Zoan fruit users, they just become even more exemplified of their physical attributes, because Zoan's normally physical. So they become, like, extremely tough. Like, it's really hard to hurt them even more now. All that kind of stuff. So that's awakening. And that has something to do with the will that the Zoans have. They kind of have to mesh. They have to have the same will as the fruit.
Gotcha. Okay. So it is not like a voice in the back here. It's not like a Gollum Schmeagol, like you're driven to something.
Gotcha,
You're like madness.
Nope.
Or like you transfer into the lion and all of a sudden you're in your bestial form and you lose your sense of self.
No.
Like in Lycanthropy.
Ayo.
Little shout out there, sorry.
Yeah, not werewolfy.
Yeah.
First time.
Are we going to try to mention that word in every podcast now?
Yeah, I'm going to try to. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
I mean, it was mentioned in the Knights of Ren. Might as well mention it here.
Oh my gosh, I did. Wow, this is I thought I was being clever as my first one. No, I'm sorry. Well, guys, it affected me more than you think, listeners. I dream about that word. Okay, but sorry. So Paul, what else then?
No, that's basically the Zoan fruit.
So the second devil fruit type, Paramecia.
Mm-hmm.
And this one in particular, you can get pretty wacky wild with the animals and dinosaurs, dragons, come up with anything out of mythology. This one in particular is where it really gets turned to 11. There are just some of the most bizarre examples. And one of them that was, you just shake your head at it when you see it in the show. One of them is the jacket no me.
Okay.
Now, intuitively, what would that do?
Just
Take a
sweet
guess.
leather jacket.
You could unzip yourself, turn into a jacket that lays on the ground, and somebody else could step in and zip you up, and now you're their jacket.
Wow.
That is wild.
And you control them, though, but it's pretty insane.
Oh, you control them?
100%.
It's a little bit of like
mind control or physical control?
Physical control.
Oh, okay.
Like, so say I have the jacket fruit, and I'm like extremely well knowledgeable in how to fight. Well, I unzip myself, and Paul is a gargantuan, but he's a big softy. He doesn't know how to fight. Well, Paul could put me on, zip me up. Well, now I'm this knowledgeable fighter, but I'm on Paul's body, which is huge.
Yep. And I am definitely 6'5", 100%.
Oh, 100%.
In real life, yeah.
You wish.
So that is like, you really have to strain your brain to find the usefulness of certain things. And it's funny because that is a lot of the threads that you'll see on YouTube comments or Reddit posts or things like that. Wherever people happen to be discussing the show, it's like, what could you possibly do with that fruit?
So you're playing chess, not checkers. Like there's an IQ level to this that you're like, just innately it seems like a really dumb, but you could actually.
Well, when Joe mentioned before about like the crapshoot of what devil fruits are, Paramecia is definitely one of them.
That seems like a low floor, by the way. It kind of like Zoan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it seems like a low floor.
Because you can definitely get something that seems completely useless, and there are a lot of fruits that seem completely useless that are Paramecia. Although, caveat, there are a couple that are completely useless, as I said before, with air quotes that I'm throwing in an audio podcast. But the user uses them fairly well. So I guess there's also that caveat. You just have to use them pretty well.
But is there any notable like super strong ones? Like I can't even think in my head. Like is one of them like a nuke? Like what would be a super strong Paramecia fruit?
Of the ones that really exemplify that, in my mind, is again one of my favorite ones I'm about to talk about, called the op fruit or the ope fruit. Really.
Midwestern. Ope.
I was like, oh. Or
Well,
Paul,
technically,
were
I'm using Japanese terms for that.
Yep.
It's actually in English. It's the heart fruit.
Okay.
It's, guess what? Shaped like a heart.
What?
Who would have
Anyways,
thought?
who would have thought? But it's essentially the god of surgery fruit, right? So it's
Okay.
a paramecia because it's underneath a large umbrella of not Zoan, aka not an animal, and not Logia, where you can punch you and you don't go and goes through you.
Mhm.
But it's under the umbrella of all these other abilities, and essentially you are just a doctor. You have the abilities of a doctor, but on like an insane scale. So one of the classic abilities of it is the guy, he just kind of holds out his hands and he can call for his room, which is his surgical room. So he creates a large, depending on how much energy he puts into this, he can create a space as big or small as he wants, and anything in that space he can manipulate
Oh, it's like a clean room.
with free will. No. Well, yes and no. Well,
Oh no, I mean like he can say like I.
it's essentially a clean room, but
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
it's not clean inside unless he wishes it to be, I guess.
Yeah.
But he can manipulate anything inside. He can switch spaces with anything. He can cut you in half and not kill you. He can just basically bisect you. And hypothetically, if you're missing a leg, and for some reason there's a leg here that no one's using, he can just
We'll just stitch this right now.
like, he doesn't even stitch it. He does not stitch it at all. He just takes his leg, takes you, puts you together. You're good as new. He can,
Just Lego blocks.
he can cut out anything that doesn't belong, any cancer, whatever. And that's really powerful. And that's on a surgical scale. But when he uses like in a battle, we've seen moments where there's large naval battleships that are attacking, and he just creates his room, and next thing you know, it's snowing at the time, and a flake of snow goes in the center where that ship used to be, and that ship peers 100 feet in the air, and just falls and crashes into all the enemies and that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Wow.
And there's other things he can do that like.
So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
extremely powerful.
Okay, yeah,
and
just
that's one of
from
my favorites.
just from where we're talking, it just seems like a really low floor, but it doesn't seem like there's that many cool ones. But
Now, another one with a low floor that you wouldn't initially think was very powerful or useful, the Washu Washu no Mi. This gives the user the ability to hang and dry someone as if they were laundry, to put them on a hang sheet.
Wow.
So you would see them like flat as a pancake, kind of just flapping there in the wind. And you're
Flat
like,
Stanley.
Flat Stanley. And you're like, okay, what is the actual usefulness of this?
Yeah.
Well, the user happens to be another vice admiral in the Navy. And you're like, okay, I guess, sure, that's like a weird sort of finisher to use on. But in actuality, when we see this, there's a couple villains early on in the show that we see in a couple of the early arcs. And later on in the show, as the story's progressing, we see these villains who we haven't seen, since they were defeated. We see them on this particular Marine boat for the Navy, and they're in uniform. It turns out, now you don't see it used on these two individuals, you see it actually happen on two others, but it turns out that they were hung and dried with the Washu Washu no Mi, and an innate ability that you wouldn't necessarily immediately think of is it actually cleans the person of evilness. Now, it's not pure. They aren't coming out Mormon,
Yeah.
but in general, it will take away some of those evil tendencies. And now these people, they are still goofballs and not necessarily the greatest individuals, but they are working for the Marines diligently. They just aren't that great of workers, sort of thing.
I see. Interesting. Wow. So a low ability that actually has like a weird meta change on character.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's something you'd never think about immediately. It kind of opens your mind to different possibilities for some of these fruit. Because the thing is, if you eat one of these and the Washu Washu no Mi is your fruit, well, you can either sulk about it or you can become pretty inventive trying to come up with ways to really make it work for whatever profession you're in.
A lot of testing and evaluation. That's what I'm
100%.
hearing.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there is one more that I wanted to mention, and this is, if you truly think about it, it's like the biggest retcon tool that you could come up with outside of being like
Nice.
the author of the anime.
It's Oda's backdoor.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
amazing, honestly.
It really could be.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this fruit is a paramecia and is known as the Habi Habi no Mi. It's like Midas's touch. But instead of turning someone to gold, you turn them into a toy.
Wow.
Now, there
Like
are...
articulated parts and all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are several implications that this causes, one of which you no longer exist as the person you once were. If I had the Hobby no Mi and I touched you, Tony, Jenna would cease to remember that she had a husband.
Oh, wow. So it affects everybody. Oh, that's huge.
And then
huge.
she'd be very scared why 3 other men were in her basement.
And a toy. And a toy.
Why do you guys have a Buzz Light? Who are you people?
Inevitably, I would then have to turn Jenna into a toy to avoid the police being called.
Yeah, exactly. But, oh my gosh. But, like, that would also mean, like, yeah, there's some high-level people they touch. It
Yeah,
Exactly.
wipes out an arc.
Someone could have brought her to Gold Roger's execution, and before they swung the axe that killed him, she could have touched him and turned him into a toy, and everyone been like, why the hell are we here?
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah.
The One Piece would cease to be known.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And the thing is with that power too, it's kind of insane because you would be Tony in this case. You would be turned into a toy. Jenna would completely forget about you. Me and Mark, Joe would all completely forget about you. But you would, in most cases, still retain your thoughts, all
Dude,
your
that's even
memories,
worse.
and you can move.
As a toy?
You're a living toy, and we would find nothing wrong with that. By the way, we would think that's all normal, no big deal.
That's crazy.
But Sugar could, if you were with her at the time and she gave you orders, you have to follow her orders.
She's got a little
It's-
army of toys.
Yeah, like manipulation.
It's a like contract with the devil, essentially, in that if her order is you are to never tell anyone that you are who you used to be, like your mouth will never be able to form the words to tell somebody. But in the back of your mind, you know it. You just can never speak it. You can never give anyone that direction.
That's like.
Now, can she undo it, or is it permanent?
Yes, she can undo it.
But then does all the memories come back?
Well, yes, here's the thing. Well, first of all, like Joe said, if she orders you around, you're ordered. But if she doesn't, then you're free to roam and do
As a
whatever you
toy.
want. But only if you're lucky, because she wouldn't do that willingly. But you roam. But yes, she can undo it willingly and free you, and everyone were to regain their memories, regardless of how much time has passed. Or another way that we learned that we can shut off that ability is if she gets knocked out.
So all the toys under her command just
Yes.
poof?
If someone knocks her out, anything like that, everyone's back to normal.
I'm free.
So that's probably the biggest weakness of that power.
Super powerful, though. I
Yeah.
mean, oh my goodness. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, and that seems to be a tendency with most of the devil fruits that we see, is that when you render someone unconscious through battle or surprise in some cases, that tends to renege any of their powers if they were able to project it onto other objects or other individuals.
Oh, cool. Wow.
Gotcha.
It would essentially end their control over that, and it would discount it.
In my research, this actually popped up. There was a stamina aspect of this fruit, so that's almost playing into because hey, they're unconscious, therefore there's not a concentration on what they're projecting out. So there is a form of like energy stamina-esque to doing this.
Kind of like chakra for
Yeah,
ninjas in
yeah,
Naruto.
yeah. But maybe not
100%
so.
there's energy involved. For certain fruits.
Okay.
Mostly for zoans, I would say there's no energy involved besides your natural. Well, every fruit has an energy. Let's say Luffy's.
Yep.
At some point, Luffy starts doing different types of things with his rubber in a way like he expands willingly, but he has to enforce that expansion. That naturally takes up his own energy and stamina to control his body to do that.
Cool.
So things like that, if when it's controlling someone or controlling something slightly out of the norm, would take that energy.
Okay, cool. So there's a definition of an exhaustion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay, cool.
The next stage of fruit is easily one of the most probably universally recognized as the overpowered fruit, called the Logia fruit. Joe and I kind of talked about it a little bit, but in a way you can consider it as elemental fruit, or just anything in which is almost fluid in a way. Essentially, that fruit can be fire, it can be water, it can be light. Anything that we can exert our force upon and not harm it. We can just go right through it, right? So when you eat a fruit, let's say it's fire, what happens is your body is now fire. You are fire. Okay. So you keep your physical form and everything. If I come and punch you in the face, my fist goes right through you. And I pull out, you reform, and you're still a human, but your body is fire. Okay. And you can like throw fire, you can manipulate fire, you're immune to fire, all that kind of stuff. Nice. So that's why Logia is one of the most overpowered fruits, because you're just immune to any sort of physical attack.
But do they cancel each other out in other ways? Like, meaning, yes. Like, is there, like, the chakra natures where, like, it's possible. Not one that's strengthened overall, but if you get water and fire, water's going to win. Or if you get, earth and earth and fire.
That's one of the few ways to affect a Logia user is by using some sort of element or property that counteracts them. For a fun example is our boy Luffy. As I said, he ate the gum fruit. He is rubber. One of the most iconic fights of the shows is he fights this guy who has the lightning fruit, which easily is an extremely cool power. It's pretty cool watching him use it. No one can touch him. He just destroys people left and right because he's powerful, extremely lightning.
Yeah.
Jeez. Lightning's extremely powerful.
Yep.
And he finally faces Luffy, and he just freaking hits Luffy with a giant beam of lightning, and he thinks it's a done deal. And he turns around. But the camera refocuses on Luffy, and he's just standing there. It's like, what just happened? It's like, I thought I was supposed to die or something. Like, I thought this was a really powerful attack. Because Luffy's not even harmed at all, because he's made of rubber.
Wait, is that Logia fruit then?
No. We'll get to that here shortly. But okay. He's made of rubber, and he's like...
But that element versus the lightning
he's like,
is good.
It has no effect. It's like a grounding.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then Luffy comes up and punches him while he's confused, and for the first time in his life, he gets hit, and he's just shocked. Because the way his natives
lightning
work...
gets shocked.
Yeah.
The way his natives lived and everything, they never encountered the material of rubber. So Luffy was just a complete enigma to him. So, we just talked about how Logia... with the weaknesses, like when Luffy, he could fight the lightning guy because he's rubber and he's lightning. And I said before, there was a few ways that you could actually harm a Logia user, even though it's so overpowered. Most common way and the big way is through the other power system called Haki. Now this is, in my opinion, much more important than Devil Fruits because this is what Shanks' crew uses. Any high-level pirate uses, even if they have a Devil Fruit. And also, the Pirate King, Gold Roger, he did not have a Devil Fruit. He also was just a pure Haki user.
Dang.
Now, there's 3 levels to Haki, or 3 different types of Haki as well. But before we get into that, Haki essentially is just the culmination of your will enforced through you and into the world.
Okay.
Right? It's almost, as you can say, chakra in a way. Right? It's, you cultivate it through practice and through understanding of how to take your energy and manipulate it. Right? It's a little bit different, but that's essentially what it is. Cool. Their life force. So the first type of Haki is known as armament Haki. This Haki is what's used to combat the Logia users. Right? Essentially, you can think of it as an armor that you coat yourself with. Generally, it's invisible to the naked eye, but in the show and in the manga, the chapters they write, they show it as a black, like, kind of filament they put on your skin and any other areas you decide to apply this to. But essentially, with Armament Haki coating you, you can now use your will and physically harm Logia users. And if you use it in any other scenario, you essentially just get a giant physical boost to your attacks. And it's still a physical boost when you attack a Logia user, but you can now just touch them, which is important.
Yeah, yep. It's to a non-armament user, Logia is kind of ethereal. They can interact with you, but you can't really harm them. But when you coat your arm in Haki, essentially now it's not going to go right through. It's going to connect.
So they're like in the ethereal plane as well, almost.
Correct. Yeah, in a way.
Right.
Sorry, so that's the way I like it. Right.
Yeah.
Conceptually, or on how they actually interact, it's it works
Yep.
just like that.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
The next step, well, armor hockey is pretty simple. It's just that the next step or the next type of hockey would be observational hockey or
Okay.
observation hockey. This one can take like armor hockey, different forms, but essentially what it is almost fortune telling, or you see slightly, you can sense what the person's about to do next, right?
Okay.
So it's in Naruto. I haven't listened to the episode yet, but if you guys talk about the Sharingan at all?
We did not.
Well, a little bit. We talk about visual prowess, but we talk about how the fact that it became like Itachi was just such a predator because they could see moves and they could almost slow down time in a way, and that's similar.
exactly what observation hockey does.
Yep.
They can see the moves.
But we didn't go too
Cut.
crazy deep.
Yeah.
To Mark's point, yeah.
So again, when the guy that Luffy fought who ate the lightning fruit,
I thought you said my guy.
sorry.
You're like guy. I was like, what?
the guy who ate the lightning fruit that Luffy fought, he had observation hockey. One of the
Mm.
few times and first times we came across this and didn't know what it was. We just knew that was a power he had. But
And
he-
how do they? By the way, sorry. How do they do this in the manga? Like, is there like some weird art that they show
Not
someone
necess-
doing it,
not for
or
the
you just know
observation.
that they're a user and they
It
do
was-
cool things, and therefore you can just chalk it up to observation?
For armament, it was easy to see because you had black like arms and stuff. You see
Yep.
the black coating.
Okay.
For observation, not really, but it was pretty intuitive because they could just dodge everything with absolute ease.
Okay, sorry. I said the manga, but also this show.
Same thing.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's what observation can do. And kind of backtracking a little bit, there's just basic, moderate, advanced versions of all these type of hockeys.
Oh.
For armament, at first you can just coat yourself, and you just you affect the exterior of the body if you're punching something or someone, or you can still coat yourself but exert force inside something instead of on the outside. So let's say you coat your body in armament hockey,
Yes.
and I punch you with armament hockey.
Okay.
I'm basically taking an armored gauntlet, punching an armored chest plate. That's how it works.
Yeah.
If I use an advanced form on you and you're unprepared, I exert my force instead on the outside on your armor, on the inside of your flesh, and do insane damage.
Okay, like internal. Wow.
That's like an advanced version. An advanced version of observation can take one of two forms or both. Either expand your radius of your observation, so you can go from like 10 feet, miles. It can go pretty insane.
Okay.
Only if you train it that far. Or instead of, I can predict your next move, I know your next move. Like 30 seconds, 3 minutes into advance. I can see the future.
Okay, so there's no more uncertainty.
Yes, it's
Okay.
it gets pretty insane. And we see both of those examples.
Gosh, yeah, your brain must be crazy though. If you're
So-
processing all those like
Yeah.
So-
lines.
Those are the two main forms of hockey. There's one other that, unlike the first two, that can be practiced by anyone, albeit with different varies of success. It's called Conqueror's hockey. Now, this one really goes to showcase the will aspect of this power. Normally, for almost anyone who has Conquerors are born with it and only exhibit it later in life because it's technically all about your mindset in a way.
That's like the one thing you can change. You know what I mean?
for this-
like,
Right? Yeah.
like in the world, you know
Yes
what I
and
mean?
no, but
okay,
like in
yeah.
this world, it gets...
Like work ethic's the one thing you can teach. Like
This
it's
one's-
not nature; it's more of a nurture thing.
Right,
That's
exactly,
why. That's why I think it's
exactly.
funny where you're like they're born with it. I'm like, wait, what?
That's
like,
at least how
it's
it's
like,
explained. This one's
Okay.
going to be pretty cut and dry. And like,
no, that's okay. Narratively,
Yes.
it makes total sense. No worries. I'm just saying, from
But
psychological.
Conquerors, let's say armament's about affecting the physical body, observation is about affecting your perception. Conquerors is about affecting almost the mind. You exert your will mentally into the surroundings. So if I have Conquerors hockey, and I basically look at you and you have a weaker will, you're a weaker opponent than me, and I exert my will on you, you're just gonna get knocked out. I don't have to do a single thing.
Think of it like an intimidation almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if we're about to square off in battle and I'm not going to take you seriously at all because you're just a weak opponent, but you say something that like you say something bad about my mom, oh dude, I'm gonna hit you with the hardest I turn, and you're just gonna be like, oh my god, who did I
crumble.
just say that to?
Wow.
And it, in one way or another, essentially like that's what happens. It like visually for the way they represent it in the show is like a burst of color, like kind of just the way he was talking about the room, it expands for the one Logia or the one devil fruit, kind of just like everything turns.
It's like black lightning.
Yeah, kind of like black lightning. It just like encapsulates the area, and everyone in that area is affected. So
wow. Okay.
Oh, so it's not just like a mano y mano. It affects.
I could be. You could have said that to me, and Mark had absolutely nothing to do with it. If Mark was on the same power level as you, you both could get knocked out.
Oh wow.
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
That's with a caveat, though, because that only happens if you also have Conqueror's Haki. And that's a clash between two, as what they call kings. So
let's say if I don't have Conqueror's Haki, I'm out.
Well, if your will is strong enough, then you can still put up a fight. But if it's not, then you're going to get knocked out instantly. And you can control your will not to knock out Mark. But if you have Conqueror's Haki, that stuff's going everywhere in an area.
Oh.
So you just have to be strong enough to resist it.
So if you're a normie and there's two Conqueror Hakis going hard in the paint,
it's not
you
fatal.
just want to get out of there.
Yeah.
You want to get out of there.
It's essentially
Get out of
a big filter system.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
everyone who's not powerful enough, they can't even be conscious enough to watch the fight.
Oh
Correct.
wow.
And they just go out. The people who are strong enough to at least not get knocked out, they're just observing.
There's holding on.
But when two Conqueror's Haki users are going at it, yeah, it's real. It's like kind of like the Harry Potter lightning bolts hitting lightning bolts.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, so there's pay-per-view numbers are garbage.
Yeah.
Correct.
In a way, yes.
Pay-per-view numbers are garbage.
Unless you're far
Yeah.
enough away, I guess. But
Oh yeah.
and just now I refer to them as kings, right? And the reason why I use that terminology is because, again, Conqueror's Haki is extremely rare and seen only in high-level players in One Piece. That being either admirals or high-tier warlords and the emperors, right? Essentially, if both pirates and Navy members, if they see someone who's like a fledgling in the pirate world, who's up and coming, and they exhibit the first signs of Conqueror's Haki, not only are the pirates thinking, wow, this guy is going to be big, because he has potential, because that's exactly what Conqueror's Haki kind of shows. But the Navy people, when they see this, are like, we have to take this guy down at all costs.
Oh, so they want
Interesting.
to nurture
Yeah.
it. They want
They
to.
eliminate it.
Yeah, we have to take this guy down. He's going to be way too powerful in the future, because that's what Conqueror Haki users exhibit. They just have so much potential.
Yeah. Potential for good or evil. A lot of potential.
Yeah.
They don't want to see that to kinetic energy. That'd be rough.
But that's essentially Haki.
Wow.
In a nutshell.
Perfect. Wow. So that's covering all the fruits and Haki, right?
Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
And just for a fun fact, like I said, Shanks and him people, they're all Haki users. Shanks is probably the most powerful user of Conqueror's Haki that's been shown in the show.
Oh wow. Okay. To date.
To date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot that you guys had to mention that.
Just out of curiosity, the Fleet Admiral, does he have a Devil Fruit or Haki or none? Or
He definitely
both.
He definitely has both. Does he have Conqueror's Haki? I don't think so, for various reasons, but it's possible.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Great question though,
Yeah.
because that's really
but
curious.
he does have one of the more powerful devil fruits that we
100%.
see. That is, at this point in the story, when we do see it, it's kind of our introduction into, holy smokes, there's like mythical level of zone fruits. And at this point, there's actually a couple that get shown around the same point of the story. But this is when you really start to expand and see just how high level and high caliber some of these characters are, in that they really are like, up to this point, Luffy's, battled his way, he's made it through, he's persevered. Yeah, he's had some tough challenges. And then at this point in the story, you're like, holy smokes, he is like a wet match out on a, piece of drowning driftwood.
Wow.
He's about to go down, and he's got heavy hitters all around him.
And he's just a newbie. Like Joe said, One Piece is amazing, right? It starts off so simple and yet so beautiful. Luffy's on his adventure, get friends, attain freedom, and he fights challenges along the way. And, it's fun watching them. Slowly he goes on and on. He starts getting more into these details, the nitty-gritty, the governments and everything behind them, and all the powers of the warlords and the upper echelons of the pirates. And he starts realizing, and we start realizing, he has a long way to go. There's a lot of people punching around him that's way above his weight class in this particular arc. And it's just great to see how Oda kind of steps up from a simple story into something that's almost more.
Gotcha.
Right? And the simple story is super enjoyable, but this, it also, that's kind of where I was talking with Mark. He missed the best part. That's when it really starts kicking off is Enies Lobbies. We start seeing that story progress into something that's much more. And it's
Than just a
beautiful.
merry band of pirates on the Going Merry.
Correct.
Yeah, and there is an awareness from Luffy and his crew at a couple points early on throughout the story in that, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. No, we are about to get absolutely trashed if we do not get stronger ourselves.
I totally enjoy that. The cool thing is, like, where you said the merry go or go merry.
Going Merry.
Going merry. So it's so funny because even though we have recorded all this, there is so much still. Because there's ships involved, there's everything like that. So we would love to absolutely have you guys on again, but let's kind of move forward.
The surface,
yeah,
right,
we
guys?
are.
I mean, there's so much more.
There's a lot you can talk about One Piece. We can sit here and talk about it for the next 3 days if you wanted me to.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
willing.
I did before we started. I said, hey, I have like 600 gigs on my computer. That means I'm going to be ready to go for any amount of episode here. But let's kind of move on to what you guys had us prep, which was just, hey, what kind of fruits we choose.
Right. There is a lot of fruits. Paul told us there was not a lot of fruits.
Yeah, he made it seem
so he
was like,
lied to
there's
us.
not that money.
So
Yeah.
I thought I could do this research really quick, but turns out you needed a little bit of time to actively, right?
I did 2 full research sessions, and right when I thought I had an answer, I clicked on one link, and I was like, oh my goodness.
So it's really funny because I like how you guys gave us a lot of examples because there are some really seemingly dumb powers.
Yeah.
But there are some that are really dang cool. And I went really back and forth on quite a few, but I think I settled on the clear fruit, which turns you can be invisible, and you can turn any other object invisible as well. Plus, the user looked bad, but
Really?
so
May I ask which user you saw? There's more than one. Oh,
Do you just want to say bad butt, and I'll cut that in? I think it would be funny. Cool, thanks.
what?
Because he said the A word.
So it's the second user, and I forget exactly how you say his name, but Shiryu
Shiryu of the Rain.
Correct. Yeah. I saw he's got a hat and stuff. Is he a Marine or what's his story? But he looked super cool.
Sure. So he was formerly with the Marines. That boy had a bit of bloodlust to him. So essentially, he was captured by the Marines because he was kind of going rogue. And they had locked him up prison up until he escaped and is now roaming around and found this new power of invisibility.
So that was your...
Absolutely. I mean, just the thought of, disappearing whenever I want, and I could stab anyone in the back. I could just be a fly on the wall. I can turn any other object.
You're basically
invisible.
Zetsu.
Yeah.
Now you think about it.
Yeah. So the utility of that, I think,
unbelievable,
is endless, right?
Yeah, it is. And I just personally find it funny you think that way because we haven't really talked about, I said before Luffy's on an adventure to find friends and crew members. One of Luffy's prominent crew members, his name is Sanji. His dream is to be invisible. He would love to have that power. And
isn't he the chef?
He is also the chef, but that's part of one of his dreams. And the first user they find, which, there's only one fruit, so this first user may or may not have lost his fruit through, death, but spoiler, whatever.
Wait. There's a fruit out there. I have the fruit. I die.
Fruits
the fruit goes back into the world?
Fruits do not disappear. They essentially reincarnate, and there's an continuous cycle of fruits.
Because you're saying the uniqueness, so that's why he's like Alpaca Man. So if I really wanted to be an Alpaca Man, I'd have to knock him out.
And then find the fruit, though.
Okay.
Yeah, because the fruit could be anywhere, right? Yeah.
Dang.
But Sanji, he meets this first guy who has the fruit, and he's like, dang, I want that fruit. Like, this is my dream, and I want it, and you're using it. I hate you.
Okay.
He was crushed.
He was
now
crushed.
his gimmick. He's the pervert of the group. He wants it
for nefarious reasons
to spy on the gender neutral bathroom.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Rough.
But
Okay.
So is Senji, is he the one that kills the first user, or is
No.
it no? Okay,
Okay.
It's the matter of fact the guy who has the second fruit and maybe
Hey.
some of his friends kill them.
gotcha.
Okay. Wow.
So
Mark, do you have an honorable mention? Because I'm gonna list two because I have two.
the other one that seemed kind of cool was, I forget what it was called, but basically you turn into a sword and you get like the strength. It's one of the
Paranecium.
yeah, and I don't know. You just it said it added extreme strength and extreme defense to it.
That
Do you recall if his name was Daz Bones?
I think it might have been.
he didn't really turn into a sword.
So, conceptually, he's right. It's essentially I'm trying to remember the exact name, but it's essentially
I
it's
thought it
like
was
the
steel
steel fruit.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's able to forge his arms
Yeah.
into blades of steel. Not quite like a sword, but the edges of his arms on the elbow to his fingers, he'll dice you up.
Yeah, he's Wolverine, basically. Yeah.
yeah, in a way, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, like I was saying, I did this in 2 research sessions. I've only Instagram Reels,
He's
all
still
this.
seen a lot. Like the stuff he sends me, he watches more One Piece than I do at this rate. Continue.
Yeah, allegedly. All right, but no. The funny thing is the fact that I didn't know that there was lame fruits, and I wish I did because my research would have been completely different. I would have tried to found one of those like tinfoil hats, and like would have found just a crazy dumb fruit and just worked it into something cool. But instead, when I looked up fruits, they just gave you, hey, here's this. And I don't know why, I just love the Zoan fruits. I really like the fact that, you can become all these different animals and the different animals. And so while I'm looking them up, I was like, what's the baddest, bluest people? And so when I first did a lot of research, and this is actually one of the reels I sent Paul, I saw there was a dragon in the show, and I said, wow, I might actually watch this show. This guy looks sweet. The fact that he has like this hybrid form and this ultimate form. I was talking about Kaido. And so that was my first one. So it's called the Ua Nomi. Ua Nomi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
I'm pretty sure it's actually.
It's called Syria.
I don't
Syria?
know how you pronounce it in the Japanese term, but I know it's called the flying fish fruit.
Okay, that might be exactly what they're talking about. But yeah, so basically, other thing is that I was also judging my choice based on the way the fruit looked as well. So I looked at the fruit and I looked at the powers. So I just was really enamored by this because it looks literally like just a blue scaly apple, like dragon scales. But it was just super cool because you can transform, like what you guys were mentioning, there's a hybrid form and another form. But it's specifically an azure dragon. So it's just a huge blue dragon. Just unbelievable strength. His scales are like almost its own form of hockey. Like very few things can like actually penetrate his scales. Like he's just that massive. They said even like him moving his body in such a way was like destroying cities. Like he had one drunken thing and blah blah. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And that was always my go-to answer. But when I actually started doing research on it more, can you guess where I'm going with this?
Law's fruit. Please tell me.
No.
Dang it.
Okay, I'm curious about that one.
Oh,
No,
sorry, it's the heart fruit I mentioned.
Oh no.
Because it's really huge on the stamina aspect you mentioned randomly before, and I was like, oh, maybe he was looking
So
into
there's
that.
the other stamina effect is actually it's Marco's fruit.
Oh,
so the
that's huge.
Phoenix. Yeah.
Oh.
The Tori no Mi fruit.
Gotcha.
So the Tori no Mi fruit is same thing. So sorry, both of these fruits that I'm mentioning, they are the mythical Zoan fruit.
Yep.
And so once again, the fruit looks like a blue pineapple. I love that. And it's a little cool gold stem. But then also the big point is that this is the Phoenix fruit. So he virtually wraps himself in blue flames. So when I saw a picture of this, I was like, oh, all right, first off, Kaido can go, Kaido can go fly a kite, right? This guy is sick. And then I doubled down because he can heal people with these blue flames. So I was like, whoa, like this is like, I don't know. I just thought it was super cool, the fact that he can heal others. So granted, his healing abilities, it's like a certain factor, but when he heals himself, it's a super high factor. When he heals other people, it still heals them, but at a lower factor. But that was another thing too, because he has these like group heals. It's called the Phoenix Pyre-Apple, but it's like pineapple stone. But basically, he like spins himself around so much that the blue flames encompass himself and other people, and inside of that aura or flame, he's healing other people. And so that's another big stamina thing, is because like virtually they say they don't really know how they quantify stamina. When I was really deep diving in this, because there's a couple fights where Marco is literally, he's part of Whitebeard's crew, but he was fighting people and he had like mortal wounds that he was healing, but he wasn't healing like the small cuts. Like after a battle, he was putting on Band-Aids. And so I went down that huge Reddit thread of people being like, well, actually, you know what I mean? Like there must be some form of stamina, because if you're like he's healing the mortal wounds to himself. So there's some reserve. Like he's not immortal too. That's like a big thing. Like this is healing, but he's not immortal. So there's some limit. There's some degradation to where his powers can extend. And I don't know why, the board game, logical, whatever, side of my brain went, I'm like, that's actually super cool. So not only is he doing all this really cool, and he can fly and all this other stuff, but he has like this own internal test of figuring out like where his limits are, so there's kind of this weird back and forth. But he seems like a very offensive player. He seems like a very defensive player. He seems like a very support player. So the fact that he was so versatile, I read his stuff and I was like, yeah, Kaido can go fly kite. This one is the one. So Tori no Mi is my top fruit.
He's definitely pretty cool.
Yeah, and he's a cool guy too.
Correct. And both of those users, for those specific fruits, you do see the awakened forms of both of those.
Yeah.
So, for example, that flying fish fruit, the dragon, we see what happens when someone initially eats that. They can turn into the dragon, but there is no hybrid form. You have to learn that. You have to coax these powers out. You have to train with them. And that's what we're talking about with the awakening, is not just the physical, but also the mental, in that you really have to understand your power through and through all the innate abilities that are not readily apparent when you first turn into a dragon, things like that.
Yeah, they even said like Marco had such mastery of it that he could just have wings or change like his fingers to blue flames.
Yep.
Where it wasn't a hybrid form, it wasn't his final form, but like he could just at will. He understood his powers that much, and it seemed like he was one of the very few users to get to that point.
That, and also he was like a pseudo Logia in a way. Like if he gets shot with a gun, all you'll see is just blue flames on his chest, like a hole with blue flames circling it. That's just because he's already automatically healing.
Yeah, it just seems so cool.
So he's almost like a pseudo Logia in that way.
Yeah. So yeah, do you guys have your own fruits that you want to go to, or you just wanted us to say fruits?
No, yeah, I guess we can say a couple.
In my heart of hearts, it does not exist in the One Piece world yet, because we are in counting. If Oda made a hot dog no Mi, and I could... Logia, I don't care. Paramecia, if hot dog's considered an animal, I'll be a zone.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Amalgamation of like 10 different meats.
Yeah.
If I can control hot dogs, there is no stopping me.
Yeah.
I will have Conqueror's dog hotkey.
Yeah.
And some of you guys might think that's a far-fetched power, but it is not.
No, I mean, someone literally has just a really advanced laundry.
Yeah,
way.
right.
The
dry washer. Right?
Yeah.
I was going to say there's literally a whole group of people. The one of the emperors I mentioned before, Big Mom's group. Her whole thing is just like basically food. Her power, it does nothing to do with food. But there is the chocolate fruit. There's the candy fruit. There's the mochi fruit.
They'll never starve.
There's the cracker fruit. There is a whole.
They just need the fruit guy just to make sure that like
Everyone's
they
got
don't
it.
have scurvy.
Yeah, right.
But as long
the
as
orange fruit.
Yeah, the orange. Yeah.
Literally claps his hands, creates crackers.
Oh, really?
It's insane.
Yeah.
And he's actually really powerful.
That is kind of crazy.
That is crazy.
How about you, Paul? What's yours?
I didn't think of a hypothetical fruit. You know, like I said, I really like the Operation fruit, but if I couldn't choose that, I would choose the Gravity fruit. I think it speaks for itself. It is pretty dang cool. The guy who actually uses it is an admiral. We first see him introduced in the show, and he literally, at some point, he calls down meteorites from space to just bombard people. It's insane. And at some point, let's say the city is ruined, he calls every single rubble in the city and creates a gigantic mass of stone and just drops it on you. He can get pretty insane pretty quickly.
Wow. Jeez.
But that's me.
But yeah, do you guys have any go backs or anything you want to touch on? Do you feel like you, at least for this episode?
When there is more to come.
Yeah, for
Cool.
sure. But do you feel like there's anything else you guys want to add really quick or anything like that?
one more quick question for you guys because I've been thinking about it. If Garp was to choose a devil fruit, which one do you think he would choose?
Oh, Luffy's grandpa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I guess, which one would he want, or would he choose, do you think, that would best suit him?
So the interesting part of that question is, how do you force someone who doesn't want to eat one, who is as strong as Garp is, that we know he is in the show, and he is a loyal Marine who, a lot of the time we do see him, is disregarding, ignoring orders, but it's not like, they're mission critical. It's just like, hey, pick up after yourself, as he like throws a bag of chips like over his shoulder.
Well, I would hate to disagree with you, but there are some orders he definitely mission critical that he either disagrees with or he's just borderline putting his foot across that line. But he can get away with it because Garp is Garp. He is high. He's a vice admiral, but he deserves the rank of like fleet admiral or admiral if he wants it. There's a lot of politics involved in why he doesn't do it, but Garp can get away with a lot of things, especially since he is known as Hero of the Marines. His feats in the past in his career have gained him a lot of basically credibility and a lot of clout in the military, in which he can't really be touched unless he really crosses them.
So, with all that being said, I mean,
Would he have one?
I see
Or
what
do you guys think he's
you just
strong
think
enough?
you just adamantly oppose it.
It would be very hard to find one that would tee him up very well. Now, obviously, you could find a bunch that are going to enhance his powers, but
Well,
not,
do you know that?
not necessarily that he would want to begin with.
You can look at a
I'm
fruit and know
thinking-
what it would do.
And
Well, I mean, and when you say enhances powers, that has a high probability of probably do something good.
so all fruits, at least from my understanding of it, the singular fruit will look the same in every iteration. So if it's been seen and categorized before of what it is when someone eats it,
You can
Then
you
you'll know
can
what it
what
is.
it is ahead of time, and the military / the world government, the quote unquote good guys in the eyes of the citizens, do extensively try and research and categorize them.
Yep.
For various purposes, both scientifically and for selfish purposes.
yeah. I was going to say, but to really answer your question, I'm not going to make up a devil fruit to give Garp, but Garp is someone who, he really, especially in his age right now, he just loves the people who he cares about and he wants to protect them, right? And one of the fruits we've seen, I feel like, could work with him pretty well. It's called the barrier fruit. Essentially, it kind of, at least in the guy's mind who uses it, what he imagines happens when it's a children's story. Maybe I've never really personally heard it. Maybe it's something Japanese children's stories are about. But if you cross your fingers, like there's a barrier in front of you, like you can't be hurt. And this guy, he has the barrier fruit, and every time he crosses his fingers, he summons an impenetrable barrier. And he can use it for very different forms. But I feel like Garp having that fruit would really kind of complement him. He has great strength, right? But he's still only one person. Having a barrier fruit in key situations would really help because he could like protect weaker Marines that he's commanding in a perilous situation. He just barriers them, and he just keeps destroying people on the outside of the barrier.
A good defense is a good offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, if he had that fruit, he also, say his ship sinks, he could no longer go into the water and rescue his men himself because he's lost the ability to swim.
Oh.
So it truly is there's definite pros even when you're getting a good one, and there's definite cons. So that's why you'd have to be very specific with the one you'd want to give Garp. But yeah, he really is. He has no issues not having one.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel like it's a drawback in the slightest. Same way with Shanks and his crew.
Yep. And a lot of others.
Interesting. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that covers it for this episode. We covered a lot of material, I think, guys.
I think we did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, this is One Piece 101.
Yeah.
I love it.
We tried.
We'll look forward to One Piece 102.
Exactly.
So with that, thanks for listening, guys. Please reach out to us with questions, mix-ups, what-if ideas, or anything else you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're asking yourself, hey, where can I reach out with you guys? That's primarily Instagram and X Twitter at the Live Laugh Lore Pod. And you can also email us at livelaughlorepod@gmail.com. That's livelaughlorepod@gmail.com.
Thanks, guys.